All right, we can get it started. Hello everybody. Thank you for attending. This is our weekly Wednesday webinar series. Say that 5 times fast. We have started this a couple weeks back. Our goal is to do a webinar every week, kind of switching back and forth between our desktop product and our online product, so that it's not confusing or anything. But covering topics that our support team and our implementation team sees on a daily basis, things that they feel are important for our users to know. So things that like roadblocks that people run into, or just like really important tidbits of information or how-tos inside of Webgility that people should know. This is a fully interactive webinar. Feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question on the mic. Most people don't, but chat in the webinar chat. That's fully welcome. Ask questions in the Q&A box as well. You are fully encouraged to ask questions as we go. If they pertain to what we're talking about in that moment, then we might answer that in that moment. If it's something that does not directly impact the conversation that we're having, we might either get to it in like a break between what we're doing or at the end with the Q&A session. So again, fully encourage asking questions. If it has anything to do with your account, like a technical issue or a billing issue, we probably won't be able to answer that on the webinar live, but we can get our team to reach out after the webinar and help out with that. So any questions you have, feel free to ask. This week we're going to be talking about order posting in QuickBooks. Very general topic. We kind of started out the last couple weeks with a more pointed, specific topic. This one applies to a lot of different areas inside of Webgility, but it is super important to us. We feel that we want to explain the full benefit of what Webgility provides to e-commerce business owners and people within e-commerce businesses, to help you get the most out of it, right? The reason people use Webgility is to save time, save money, and keep overhead costs down. We all know with the tariff apocalypse that's currently happening right now or imminent on the horizon, people are looking to save money in any way that they can, and the goal of Webgility is to do that. So we want to teach you guys how to maximize Webgility's effect. Long intro, but just to reintroduce myself and our lovely panel or co-host, I am John May. I'm the engagement manager for Webgility. If you've been to any of our webinars in the past couple of years or have called into our IVR or seen any of our YouTube videos, you've seen my face, heard my voice. It's the way that it is. I don't know that I love that personally, but that's where I find myself. And then I am joined by David Pond, who is our senior implementation specialist. Say hi, David.
Hi, David.
Perfect. And David is an expert in all things Webgility, so he is going to do a live demo of some of the things that we're talking about today. I will first start off with our agenda, and as always, it's going to be a pretty short agenda. We want to keep these webinars as bite-sized as possible, answering the questions that you guys have, but doing those short introductory demos so that people can get as much benefit as possible. I wanted to talk first about the cost of manual data entry. That is the whole purpose of this specific webinar series, is to talk about what sort of manual data entry you're probably already doing or trying to replace with Webgility, and then how to make sure that you're doing that to the greatest effect in Webgility. From there, we'll go to that live demo with David, and then over to the Q&A to end it. All right, so what's the rub with manual data entry? This is, and usually these first slides in these webinars, they're going to be pretty obvious to most people, at least as we're starting out. We're trying to cover the topics that are sort of more at the ground level, especially for our newer customers or people that don't have a full grasp on everything that Webgility can do yet. But I think it's important to call out that manual data entry is everywhere inside of your business. I mean, if you have warehouse workers or people that are putting order information into QuickBooks manually, anything that requires a human hand to go and type information in and has the element of human error is manual data entry, and that's what Webgility aims to eliminate. So with manual data entry, I know I mentioned the sort of tariff stuff that's going on right now. One way to look at it as of right now is manual data entry could be an entire person employed, right? It could be an entire person on the payroll, somebody that goes and takes your data from all of your stores, whether you have one or five, and then takes that information and puts it into QuickBooks manually. Sometimes that can take, an hour a day. Maybe it's just a part of somebody's job, but sometimes it can take the entire day for somebody. So the goal for Webgility here and what we try to stress is that we want to take up as much of that space as possible so that the people that you do employ can focus on the more important things. If that's the business owner that's sort of wearing all these hats, the trade-off there is that you can spend more time growing the business, building the brand, doing leadership things. If it's somebody that works in the warehouse or in bookkeeping or accounting, they can spend time doing the things that do require that mental finesse rather than doing the mundane, data entry work. Um, Anything you want to add there, David? I know this is pretty, like I said, airy topic, but still important, I think.
Yeah, I wanted to go over that, the thing that I see, and I'm gonna tell you, it was only a couple of years ago I met this couple that I was helping with Webgility, and they were using a pencil and a ledger to put their orders into their accounting, and they were not a nice old couple, and I was like, I couldn't believe it, but we definitely helped them out and automated it, and it was all new to them. But yeah, what happens is, it can take a really long time because it takes a really long time, especially what happens is somebody starts out with a store and that store, they start getting orders and then they get more orders. And pretty soon they're either thinking of another store or they're just getting too many orders to keep up with. And then they're looking all over trying to figure out what do I do next. Automation obviously is the key here. So what happens as it builds up, it starts taking a long time. You start rushing on your data entry into QuickBooks. You have the possibility of getting a lot of errors and inconsistencies with your accounting data by manually entering it. You may miss adding merchant fees. You may miss refunds. You may miss shipping fees, that kind of stuff. So that's not factored into your accounting like it should be. And then, just because it takes a long time and you're trying to rush through it, you may journal entry it. And maybe you're not paying attention to the products and the costs of goods sold and all that kind of stuff because you're just trying to get the sales information,
Mhm.
for what you're doing. So, there's a lot of reasons to automate, and that's also a good reason to automate is to scale. So if you're adding more stores, the two top connections are Amazon and Shopify, but we do have a lot of stores and marketplaces that we connect with. And then we can help get that information, all that sales and product and accounting information from your online stores and marketplaces into QuickBooks, and we can do it in an automated way. You can see everything in Webgility, and we'll show you that here too. But this is kind of a general discussion on that, kind of what we do with Webgility to help with that automation.
Yeah, and I liked what you said about sort of when things get too complicated, a lot of businesses will start to journal entry because they feel that that's the natural progression, right? They think like, hey, I have so much information, why don't I just condense it into a journal entry and forego all that extra information that might be, input incorrectly or might be bogging down my company file, stuff like that. When in reality, if you use Webgility in the right way and have it set up to your workflow, and you do want to have that cost of goods sold data and expense data, everything that goes into your online orders, you can set it up so that you don't have to do journal entries. It's always an option, and there are definite use cases for journal entries. Not to say that it's not a good option, but the point, and I guess the thing that we want to drive home as uh, champions of Webgility, I guess, is that Webgility is flexible enough that we can help you set it up in a way that works for your business, saves you time, saves you money, and keeps the headache down, I guess, most of all as well. So, cool. We can jump right into the demo there. And as we do the demo, I'll stop my share so David can share. As we do the demo, we'll just talk about some of the things that Webgility or all the different ways that Webgility can, eliminate that manual data entry. And then again, if you guys have questions or want to have dialogue about, things that you've seen in Webgility, things that you've seen in your own business that you want to kind of pass along to other customers. I think that's another part of these webinars that we want to encourage is that it's not just for us to talk at you. It's not for us to, tell you what to do as a business. I think you guys know better than anybody as business owners how to run a business. And with all of you on the call here, if you want to share ideas and, pass along good information and kind of collaborate, I think that's another really good benefit to these types of webinars. So.
Yeah, so I need to welcome everybody. I kind of just said hi, David, at the beginning, kind of joking around, but thanks for everybody, visiting us and joining along with this. Happy to have you here. So Webgility, obviously, this is all online software. Webgility is paired up with QBO, QuickBooks Online, and we connect to different stores and marketplaces. So this is just like the homepage of our Webgility, and here you can see there's a bunch of stores connected. Um, I've had customers that have, had like 23 different stores connected, so or multiples of a POS system or locations. So there's a lot of differences to the configuration. So while we're talking today, there's just, the everybody does their accounting differently. That was a new one on me when I first started with Webgility almost 7 years ago. I thought accounting was always done a certain way, but there's different workflows. There's B2B, B2C. There's, just a whole, it depends on your accounting and your business needs, really. So we then configure for all those different type of workflows and configurations. So what I'm going to do is show that in the connections here in Webgility, we just go in and connect the stores. We connect it to QuickBooks Online. You can see up there accounting platform, sales channels that we connect to, and also payment gateways like your payment provider, shipping apps. This is a demo environment, so I don't have everything connected in this environment. But if you have your shipping app connected, like a ShipStation or Shipping Easy, we can get the fees, the shipping fees from that. So that's what one of the things that I mentioned earlier is that, sometimes when people are manually entering stuff into QuickBooks, they are not entering their fees. They're not entering the information that helps them see what their cost of goods sold and profit and loss is really showing. So once we have this all set up and configured, then that definitely helps you, be able to see where you stand as your business grows. So here's Shopify. Here's some orders in Shopify. I'm just going to show you the order information. There can be a lot of different, information pieces of information here. You've got the customer information, you got the SKUs and order information, you've got sales tax, you got fees, you got shipping. There's all sorts of information that comes in on your orders. And what you're really trying to do is get that into your accounting, into your QuickBooks. So Webgility sits in between these two. So like if we look at the order inbox here, there's a couple different ways we, after we're done with the configuration, that you can run Webgility. You can manually post these orders. You can run the automation where it syncs either 15 minutes or overnight, once a night. Depends on your account level. This information comes into Webgility, and you'll see here, this one doesn't have any fees on it. Let me go grab one that shows some fees in here. So here you can see fees, Shopify fees associated with this order. We configure how this goes into QuickBooks. So here's a lot of the order information, and it's like you would be manually entering this into QuickBooks. All this information can then be put into QuickBooks automatically.
Yeah, so I think
With
going through all of these options, I think it's good to reiterate that like all of these points of data both on the QuickBooks end and on the Shopify end or whatever store you're using. Those are all points at which somebody, if it was being done manually, could be put incorrectly. And not to say that that's happening every single time, but the more orders you get, the more chances that somebody's going to have to, do a little what's it called, fat finger, and accidentally do a wrong number there. And then from that point, you're having to, when you go to reconcile or close your books, you're wondering where that inconsistency is, where that discrepancy is, and kind of spending more time going back to fix it. So I think the idea that we want to drive home is that all of these things, all these little data points that you see in Webgility are just ways that you're saving time. Um, I think in the order details, it really illustrates just how much information is pulled from your Shopify into Webgility and then in turn into QuickBooks. But then on the QuickBooks end, there's stuff as well that you want to make sure is maintained. So yeah, just wanted to
Yeah.
point that out.
Yeah. One of the ways that this works is you connect when you connect your online store and your QuickBooks to Webgility, we're matching up the products. So if you're selling products, you could be drop shipping and have products that are non-inventory. You could have bundles. You can have individual SKUs. You want to match that data. So we do have a order match or product matching in Webgility, but if your SKU matches on the website to the SKU in QuickBooks or the item name in QuickBooks, then we know what product that is, and we can either sync product quantities and prices to your website from QuickBooks, so you can manage that all in QuickBooks. But it also, your COGS, your cost of goods sold and your sales and all that kind of stuff is based upon the product. So you want to make sure that the product SKUs match, or there is some matching between the products. I'm not going to go into that. We went into that the last webinar and went over a lot of the product matching and stuff like that. If you have any questions on that, feel free to ask. I'm just going to kind of skip past that.
Yeah, yeah, and if anybody wasn't in attendance for the last Webgility Online one where we did talk about SKUs and inventory management, you can go to our YouTube channel. There's a whole playlist specifically for these webinars, um, or there's a link to it on the landing page that you use to sign up for this webinar specifically that you can access those recordings. So all of it is available. But yeah, really, really good to call out. I think getting as much information synced as possible is always a good thing. And kind of an additional benefit here is that I know you talked about like bundle items and assembly items and all those different types of inventory, non-inventory, the way that they're set up on QuickBooks, in correlation with how they're set up on your store. The good thing about Webgility here is that it takes away that cognitive burden of having to remember what you need to do when you do put in those orders, right? Like if you're working with a bunch of inventory and non-inventory items or differently categorized items or products in your catalog, and you're putting orders in manually, you're having to kind of take yourself out of the headspace or kind of put yourself into a different headspace for every type of product that you're doing to make sure that you're tracking things correctly. And Webgility just takes that all away because we see the products on both sides as long as things are set up correctly, and kind of takes all that guesswork out, all that again, that cognitive burden that you would have otherwise.
Yeah, and one of the things that I run into is I'll have a customer that is working on putting their information into QuickBooks, and they completely miss the fact that there could be refunds, on the orders, or they're manually doing the refunds. So they're missing them completely because they're not paying attention to them, or they're not doing them correctly. And once you have Agility connected and set up, refunds come in automatically. So if an order posted to QuickBooks, that refund's going to come in and post to QuickBooks to offset that original order. So there's a lot of good, syncing that goes back and forth to keep your QuickBooks matching what you've done on your website. The other thing I'd like to show is Webgility is very visible, as you can see here. If there were errors, it would show up in the error folder and you can fix those. If you don't know how to fix an error, we have a really good support team. We pride ourselves on helping customers, always staying in touch with our customers. You need a different configuration, add a store, whatever. We have support right down here in our application itself, and it goes right to our team. anytime you need help, anytime you need a question answered, it's right there. So that's one of the things I hear on other softwares that people may have started out with a free connector or something, and they get no support from it. It doesn't work. It's missing orders. Here you get to see everything. We get to configure it how you want to post it. I mentioned before on the order posting that workflows are all different. We get to go in and completely configure how you want these orders to go in. Single transaction types, multiple different transaction types, sales receipts, invoices, all this kind of stuff is configured, and we can test that into your accounting, make sure that it's, how you want it to show up in your accounting. And then once that's all configured here, we can turn on the automation to automatically get those orders that are downloaded and post them into your accounting. So orders, products, customers, discounts, sales tax. Sales tax is an interesting one. I get a lot of questions on that. Sales tax, if you have sales tax, a tax nexus, it should be set up in your online e-commerce. Now, platforms such as eBay, Walmart, Amazon, those are facilitator tax platforms. Now, they collect the tax and remit the tax on your behalf. We do not record that tax and post it into QuickBooks because you're not liable for that tax. Amazon's posting it to, taking care of that information for you. The individual stores like Shopify or WooCommerce or BigCommerce, those all should have their tax nexus set up properly. If you're a smaller company, you're just funneling this into QuickBooks. We pass that tax information from the website into QuickBooks. We don't calculate it or change it or whatever ourselves, in Webgility. So it needs to be set up in QuickBooks. It needs to be set up in your website if you're doing sales tax, and we just kind of connect the dots. The same thing like here, I mentioned refunds, discounts, fees. Fees is a good one. I don't have all the items connected here, but I do have merchant fees connected on Webgility Online in QBO. The most common way I see fees set up is as a line item. The reason I see it as a line item on the order is then it leaves the order total left. It makes it a little easier on that final reconciliation step. When you see what you get paid from the bank, it's not including the fees, and it matches up to the amount in your clearing or holding account that you're posting to. So you can post this to a separate transaction and to an account. But like I said, on QBO and Webgility Online, the most common is just as a line item for the fees. We can add shipping fees, the payment provider fees. Those are things that are commonly missed, with customers manually entering their data. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
yeah, and
jump.
it's oh, sorry.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I think it's just really important to call out that like all these little additional things are exactly what we're talking about, right? Like if you're using Webgility and you're just pulling your orders and automating the orders, that's great. But if you're not getting the full picture or you don't have all these little intricacies set up for refunds and fees and discounts and sales tax, you're not getting the full picture, right? And I think the idea is that you do want to have all that data flow through the same place and flow through consistently. And then just on the topic of sales tax, I don't want to go too much more into it, but I think we could probably do an entire one of these webinars on sales tax. So if anybody's interested in something like that, let us know. There's a survey after the webinar to kind of let us know on topics that you would like to see in the future. Feel free to drop it in chat as well. I also see a couple of questions. I feel like we could take a second to answer at least one of these. Tracy asked how to change the chart of account number that's being downloaded from Shopify through Webgility to QuickBooks Online. I would assume that you mean how to change which account or chart of account, which account in your chart of accounts is being routed to in your orders, right? And in that case, David's gonna show, I guess, under the
Yeah,
orders section.
yeah,
Perfect.
yeah. So if in your chart of accounts, if you have a clearing account, or some people go to undeposited funds because that's how they've grown up and used their QuickBooks. We tend to navigate towards or recommend a clearing account. It's a bank account that's not set up with a bank feed to an actual bank, so it's just called a clearing or holding account. So we typically would set up to a clearing or holding account. The transaction numbers would go into that clearing or holding account. the discounts, refunds, fees, that all goes in and out of that clearing account to help settle your final amount that you're reconciling. So we do have that. If you have different stores can point to different accounts depending on what your needs are. We also can break out payment methods and payment types in Webgility so that you can point different payment methods or types into maybe a sales receipt or invoice or a paid invoice or an open invoice. So there's different features here to set up your workflow. I did see a question in the chat. Just like, and the question is about maybe a missing feature or a feature that's changed. Webgility is updating our online product. We are working on that all the time and making updates. Same with the online stores that we're connected to. Shopify, for instance, has had a huge growth. They are always updating their software. We try to keep our software matched and upgraded and connected and working with all these updates. 29 different stores and marketplaces that are online and desktop Webgility connect to, and we're always working. We have a large team of people that are developing and working on keeping this connected. Think of your phone, your computer, anything electronic that has software on it is always being updated. Webgility is the same. So just wanted to let you know that we are adding more B2B features. We're trying to keep up with some of the platforms like a BigCommerce or Shopify. As they add B2B features, we're trying to get those B2B features added to our software.
And
And
on your point, Michelle, I know you're talking about B2B orders within the last month changing, and that is so we've released a couple of pretty large updates for B2B orders specifically in Shopify. So I wonder if it has something to do with that. It could be a bug. But let me take a look, and I can get with our team to make sure that it's not a bug or anything on our end. It could just be that we need to go through and make sure things are set up correctly because there were some new checkboxes and things added for the B2B orders. I don't know, David, if your environment has the new updates, so I don't want to
I,
like have it
I
demoed live and then have it not
yeah,
work. So
yeah, I don't have all the B2B stuff right here in this demo environment. It is relatively new and I don't have it connected yet in that way.
totally
Um,
fine. Michelle, I'll follow up on this and just make sure because I'm almost positive because I had to do the videos for the releases on our B2B features, so I kind of know how they work. But as far as matching it to an email address when you pull in orders from Shopify, it should work exactly like you're saying. So I'll go and take a look and we can have somebody follow up just to make sure we're taking care of you. And then Sarah mentioned that she would love to see a webinar on sales tax. I think that's a great idea. It's something that we talked about a lot in the past. Either it will be something like this, or we actually do also partner with TaxCloud, who is a sales tax remittance partner of ours. So there could be maybe a longer form general sales tax webinar that we do, or both. So just stay tuned. David and I will kind of powwow on that one and see if we can make that work in the next month or so.
yeah, and sales tax, a lot of people who are only have like one tax nexus requirement are manually keeping that up in their website in QuickBooks, and we just funnel that through to accounting. If the customer needs to be, tax exempt, that needs to be set up in QuickBooks. The customer needs to be set up in your online e-commerce. That customer information has to match. Once it matches from your e-commerce to your accounting software and the order post, it will show that customer as tax exempt. But it also has to be tax exempt in the website. So we just match the data together as it's getting posted. The other thing that I see happen is if you have a large tax nexus, say you have quite a few, you've met the requirement to have a tax nexus in, maybe 20 states. That's a daunting task to keep that tax information up and current. That's typically where I would recommend a customer look into like a TaxJar or Avalara or some sort of tax software that will keep that tax information up to date, remit that tax information from, from your website to your, uh, make sure that it's getting tracked and taken care of. The reason I say use a third-party tax when you get to a certain size is the tax laws are always changing.
Mhm.
So it's not like you go in and spend like, a couple of weeks or a month setting up all this tax nexus. You're going to do it the next month. There may be some voting. There may be different states that have now changed their tax percentages or their tax jurisdictions and all that kind of stuff. It's always a moving entity there.
Yeah.
And the third-party tax companies will keep that up to date, keep you on top of all the current tax laws. It's a good thing to have. Like I said, for a larger tax nexus and you're struggling to keep that up to date, that's definitely where you look into a third party for that.
Especially in today's day and age, right? Like I keep saying it, but everybody, I feel like we should be talking about the tariffs and kind of how that's going to impact our landscape in e-commerce. And I think um, tax goes hand in hand here with that, like the de minimis tax and stuff like that has been changed and kind of, it's gone back and forth. So always good to keep that in mind. And I know, David, you mentioned Avalara, TaxJar, and then I mentioned TaxCloud. If anybody needs a link to, speak with somebody at TaxCloud, like I said, they're a partner of ours. We'd be happy to get you in touch with them. Look at TaxCloud or any of these third-party tax remittance softwares as essentially Webgility for tax. Tax is so, there's so much complication. There's so many complexities in tax that it does require its own app at some point. So yeah, if you have large tax nexus requirements, it'd be good to start looking into those other options. Other than that, though, and I know this is part of your question, Sarah, being able to map specific states to specific liability accounts. If I'll let David get through the rest of the demo. Just I know he has a couple things to wrap up on, but we could go over some maybe use cases in WebGility that you could maybe set up with that because WebGility has some stuff with you can maybe set up custom order types based on states in Shopify and have those post differently to different accounts inside
Yeah,
of
and,
WebGility.
and I'll touch base on this before my next step here, since that's a big question. So here, like on a platform, any of the, like I mentioned, Amazon or eBay or Walmart, those type of platforms are facilitator tax, so we ignore the tax on those. So you would check all the states here and say, I'm ignoring this tax for those. For what you're asking, you want to map specifically a tax nexus. You can map states and locations here. So there's a whole section here that you can add your tax nexus in here manually and update it, keep it up to date. So we can pass that through from your website to QuickBooks. The most common is to just put it to QuickBooks, and it's based on location. So it does it automatically in QuickBooks, but you can go in and map these locations. Hopefully that answers your question on the tax nexus.
And I
Uh,
see Kathy also asked, does this all work with QuickBooks Enterprise Online, meaning a hosted environment with QuickBooks Enterprise? Yes. Without getting into too many details, either.
we have to be careful there. I'm going to
Yeah.
interrupt because QuickBooks sometimes will say QuickBooks Enterprise online, and it's a hosted environment. So it's basically QuickBooks Desktop set up
Yeah.
on
I'm
an
pretty sure
online
that's what
hosting.
Kathy's referring
Yeah,
to, is that
and
it's in the
and
cloud.
WebGility Online is pretty much paired with QuickBooks Online. That's kind of the pairing. We do pair our WebGility Desktop with QuickBooks Enterprise Desktop. So those are kind of how our applications work together. And that's what you see here is the WebGility Online connected to
We
QBO
have
QuickBooks
experimented
Online.
with WebGility Online connecting to QuickBooks Enterprise or QuickBooks Desktop. But I would say just for a general better fit, we recommend using QuickBooks Desktop with WebGility Desktop. You install the just as you would install QuickBooks Enterprise directly on that hosted server. You do the same with WebGility, install it, and then run it alongside QuickBooks
Yep,
Enterprise.
yep,
But yes, all
absolutely.
those capabilities, and actually our desktop product has a lot more, I would say, complexity, but it's more just features that have been baked in over time. It was our flagship product for a really long time. So you'll notice in desktop that it is a little bit different. That's kind of why we split these webinars in general. But yes, all the features that we're talking about are definitely available inside of our desktop product.
So I just want to touch real quick on this is our automation section here to turn on the automation. So after everything's configured, you can post this automatically, have the orders come in and post to QuickBooks. Like I said, depending on the account, it's 15 minutes or nightly. And that's with any of the products, quantity syncs or price syncs or order syncs into QuickBooks. So we have settings here. Once those settings are all set up, and then it just runs automatically and it just gets your orders and posts your orders. I'm going to go in here and show you what it looks like on some of these orders, maybe one or two here. Just go in and see it in QuickBooks. So we've got order information that you see here in Webgility. I'm going to go to some posted orders here. And I can go view this in QuickBooks. So this is an already posted order. Come on, QuickBooks, you can do it. Here we go. There it is. And so now you can see all the order information going into QuickBooks. I'm not going to go over all the details here. We're kind of running low on time now. But the as you can see here, we have sales tax. This one is set up automated based on location. We have shipping. Shipping could be here in the shipping box. It could be as a line item. You see the products or services are up here. If there was more, obviously it would all show on here. It gives the totals and stuff. It gives, would show your fees in this line. Let's see if I can find another order to actually show that. Give me a second here. See if I got something with fees on it. This one has a discount. Let's see. I'm just going to show this one. I probably don't have one right here that was posted that has a fee on it, but the fee would show as a line item in there if that's how we configured it. So one of the things is that typically the order information as it comes in, you can see these products all lined up here, the discount here, the totals, all that kind of stuff being posted. There are a lot of requirements for some people that they're doing their accounting in a different non-standard method. We're based on the standard accounting practices and workflows. So I do always have people that have other ways of doing stuff. Maybe they were doing stuff manually and doing it differently than what the standards are. It gets a little difficult to try and do that sometimes, but we do have a lot of settings. So basically we would go through and try and match what we could to your workflow. Again, I'm going to go into a product and here to show you the cost of goods sold, inventory, that kind of stuff is based on products. I get a lot of questions on that. Products based here in QuickBooks, this is an inventory item. Each inventory item, as you can see, has a SKU and a product name and everything, but the inventory asset, the sales of product income, and the cost of goods sold, these are all based on the product. It's not something that Webgility assigns. It's not something that the website assigns or changes in QuickBooks. Product information, cost of goods sold, all that is based out of your accounting software. So if you have a different product and that product needs to have a different cost of goods sold, I see people do, well, they might not do a cost of goods sold called Kenny, but this is a test environment.
We don't judge.
Yeah, but the cost of goods sold here can be changed. Your sales of product income account can be changed depending on the products. Like if you have different stores or different products that are sold, from different inventories. So you have some of a different vendor that you bring in. You can see that you have vendor information down here you can assign. That's the most common way to track your cost of goods sold, get a P&L out of QuickBooks. So I think that's pretty much all I have here to go over. Is this was just a general, why are people using the automation? One is, they started out manually with one store, the orders started to climb. Pretty soon you're left with this big list of orders in your store. That those orders, you're manually entering all that. So when you're in, let's see, in Shopify here, you start seeing all these orders and you have all this order information. This really gets hard to put into your accounting. It's like, what do I put in accounting? Where does it go? How am I mapping it to an account? Um, all those questions are answered when you do the setup in Webgility and you're funneling this information from these orders into your accounting. So really, that the benefit is less errors, not getting behind on your accounting. We'll get people signed up. We can get past orders. So say you sign up and you've been struggling and your data is really not good or spotty from January to now, we can go back to January, get that order information and post it into accounting for you and get it up to date and have it, correct. Errors, that's what happens when you're kind of rushing and trying to get this into QuickBooks because you have so much data. So it's just a good thing to automate once you get everything set up and you've got those orders flowing through. Also, if you start expanding, going into multiple stores, that's even more of a benefit of having this automation software. Webgility, as you can see, is very visible. You can see what's going on. You can see information on products, product catalog, inventory, all that kind of stuff. So if there is an issue or an error, it can be either maybe it's a configuration change that you need, maybe it's something didn't match, so you need to map it. Somebody added a product in the website, somebody added a product in QuickBooks, but not in both places, and then it doesn't sync and match up. I'm not going to wait for that to load there, but I think I just want to go to maybe answering a few questions before we end this out.
Yeah, yeah. And it looks like Kathy asked another question. Don't be sorry for asking questions. It's what we're here for, so totally fine. Can we pick and choose which items we want to sync? Yes. You can, if you're looking to use our automation tool, generally that's going to look at any products that you have listed as, tracking quantity or price and sync those automatically depending on how you have the automation tool set up. But you can also, like if you're syncing manually, like David's doing right now, you can just sync what you want here. So and when I say manually, I know we're talking about killing manual work. I would like to kind of reference Webgility as having sort of two steps to killing that manual work and two types of automation. There is, I'd like to call this automation light, where you're going in and you see, okay, well, this product is out of sync. The price doesn't match QuickBooks, what it shows in Shopify, and you go and hit that sync button. That's that automation light. That's taking the work out so you don't have to go in and check your Shopify and then go in and check your QuickBooks and adjust whichever one you want to be consistent. And then the sort of leveled up version is that automation tool that David showed, where you can go and select all of your products to be synced at once. But again, you can also take like inventory tracking and price tracking and not sync those if you'd like as well. So there's certain products or certain ways that you can set up your products so that you don't automatically sync everything. It sounds like maybe you want to do some, maybe you don't track the inventory on, and some you do. You can configure that so we don't automatically sync inventory or something like that from QuickBooks. Let me know if that answered your question. That was a sort of a long-winded response.
Yeah, we do have a lot of different workflows and features here. So if you've got a mixture of inventory, non-inventory, obviously, maybe you're drop shipping the non-inventory products in QuickBooks. You don't need to sync those. You can leave the on the website. You can each of the products on the website. So if you go into a product, it's going to have a setting in there that says, track quantity. That's if we're syncing quantity up to it and it's an inventory product. If you have an item that's a drop ship and it's a non-inventory, you can continue selling when out of stock, so you don't have to keep going in there and typing 9999 on the quantities and sell down and go back and manually adjust that. I see people doing that.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of different features that you can set up and manage your inventory and products.
I'll drop a link, Kathy, to our last webinar that we did a couple weeks ago that was specifically about inventory. And that goes over exactly what we're talking about and the ways to maybe set things up so that you can either track what you want or, forget about what isn't inventory and make sure everything else is consistent around it. I'll drop that in the
Also,
chat here in a sec.
there's a difference. It's kind of QuickBooks Online is paired with Webgility Online. QuickBooks Online doesn't have inventory locations in their product. It doesn't have advanced inventory like unit of measure or different warehouse locations or bins or anything like that for if you're warehousing product and you're tracking product more granular. So our desktop WebGility and QuickBooks Enterprise has a lot more of that inventory features. You can pull product from different warehouse locations across the United States. You can do it by product. You can have different products set to different warehouses. There's a lot more features for inventory control and selling to different locations and stuff on our desktop product. So you just have to think, QuickBooks Online doesn't have these features. We're not going to have these features. So we're paired with the QuickBooks. We're not, you know, changing the accounting. Kind of a we're just getting it into accounting in an automated fashion for you.
Yeah, a good way to look at it is WebGility is sort of the middleman that passes information that already exists from one place to another. We generally don't create any sort of information. There are certain instances where like you pull in orders and we can create products automatically via like a transfer, but usually we're not flat out creating any sort of information. And then Carrie, you asked about where to sign up for our desktop webinars. That's a great question. Just use the same landing page you used to sign up for this webinar. I send out an invite as soon as I can. As soon as I send out the recording for each week, I'll automatically also send out an invite to all desktop users that we have record of for that same landing page. So I'll link that landing page in here. And then another thing that I wanted to kind of talk about and that I talk about on all of our webinars now is we actually just recently started a customer advisory panel, is what we're calling it. You could think of it as sort of like a beta testing program that we have internally. More or less, we're just looking to get a number of customers on board to help us test new features, give us feedback on what's working in the product, what's not. So if you have a lot of strong opinions about where you want WebGility to expand in the future in certain features, it's perfect. And we also pay for participation. So you get paid based on the amount of surveys and stuff that you do with us. So I'll post a link for that sign up in the chat as well. I'm just having a hard time talking while I'm doing. Sorry.
Yeah, and I mentioned before, we do have really good customer support is built into our product here with the chat. We also have an AI assistant you can see up here. We actually show you some of the prompts you can do down here. It's really cool beta product that we have out right now. Gives you a lot of features and information that you can pull off of your orders in WebGility. So that's kind of a cool feature we have. So I think that's everything that I have today to go over. I know we obviously have to end this. We can't go on forever, but it's been great, seeing the questions and having the ability to answer those as quickly as we can with you guys. Thanks for joining, and I'm going to turn it back to John here. And John, hopefully you feel better, and that cantaloupe didn't quite
I think it was a
take
false
everything.
alarm. It tasted
Okay.
weird, but I don't think it's affected me, so that's good. I posted two links in the chat, and I still need to get Kathy. I need to get your link for the YouTube video for last topic. But that first link again is each week, just to kind of reiterate it vocally. Each week we swap back and forth between QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop, and we'll cover the same topic twice over those 2 weeks, right? So next week we'll cover this same topic, all the stuff that we talked about today, with our desktop customers, and then the following week we'll start a new topic. So every time I send an email out, just like the ones that you saw, I'll include as far into the future as we have planned for the topics that we're covering and the dates and times that they are going to be hosted at. And you can use that same registration link each time. I'm just going in and changing that same website page to be updated to the new webinar for the following week. So you can always
And
use that same link.
in case anybody has further questions too, we have a really good help doc, on our website. So here we have our Webgility Online, we have our Webgility Desktop, we have a lot of help docs. So these are pretty good information for our customers to go through and see just how everything works here. So just, if you do have a question, feel free to go to our Webgility help docs. It's helpcenter.webgility.com, and just look up some of the information if you have particular information you're looking for or want questions answered on. And obviously, we've tried to do as much as we can on the webinar here and answer questions. But yeah, it's been nice having everybody, and thanks for joining.
Yeah. Look forward to having you guys, if not next week, because you're probably online users, the following week. But yeah, after I end the webinar, it's going to take you to a survey if you'd like to just let us know what topics you'd like to cover in the future. I've already noted the sales tax suggestion that you had. But yeah, any other topics that you'd like to cover, I mean, this is all for you guys. So our main goal is to give you guys the ammunition you need to feel like you're, scaling your business and using Webgility to the best of its ability. So any suggestions you have, we are full game. All right. Appreciate you guys. Everybody enjoy the rest of your week. Talk to you next time.
See ya, everybody. See ya, John.
Thanks, David.